Kurt and Lori Haskell think the U.S. government was behind the whole thing.
It was intentional, and it went this far to further the war on terror, to get body scanners in the airports, to increase the TSA's budget, to renew the Patriot Act, and whatever other reasons you want to list.
The Haskells say in Amsterdam, before boarding the flight to Detroit, they witnessed Abdulmutallab arguing with a ticket agent at the gate because he didn't have a passport, when a man in a tan suit with an American accent intervened.
The ticket agent did not want to allow Mutallab on the flight, and this man was very insistent of it. And then she referred them to a manager down the hallway.
They next saw Abdulmutallab on board the plane when they saw fire and people screaming. Abdulmutallab has insisted on representing himself in this case. The trial date's now been set for October 4th and could include up to 400 witnesses.
It's a very, like I said, very serious case with a lot of potential, a lot of evidence that has to be reviewed, and a lot of witnesses which must be interviewed in order to properly prepare the case.
That's Abdulmutallab's standby attorney, Anthony Chambers. Although the judge has urged Abdulmutallab to have Chambers represent him, so far, he's refused.
I think that this is a case that we can help him with greatly. It's a very defensible case.
And you just heard the standby attorney saying he thinks it's a very defensible case. Of course, with Abdulmutallab representing himself, it would be interesting to see just how well he can defend himself. They do say that he's been having some trouble.
All right, you can watch the rest of it up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But the issue here is Kurt Haskell isn't saying this. He witnessed it. The government tried to deny it and now has admitted it. And is his standby lawyer going to bring this up? Is Mutallab clearly out of his mind going to bring this up? We saw the government cook the bomb, train the driver, and order a stand down in '93 with the first World Trade Center attack. It's the same story over and over and over again. A month ago in Germany, a plane came in with a supposed bomb. Turned out that was a drill, but they reported it after. Kurt Haskell joins us, who's been completely vindicated in spades, everything he talked about. Kurt, we appreciate you and your wife's courage. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back on, Alex.
Recap, basically, for those that don't know the details of the story, exactly what happened and now what's unfolded since then.
Sure. Well, the main part of what people want to hear me talk about is what I saw before boarding, which was a man in a tan suit who appeared to be Indian escorting Mutallab to the ticket desk, indicating that Mutallab needed to get on the plane, but he didn't have a passport. The ticket agent refused, and then the man in the tan suit said, he's from Sudan. We do this all the time. They got into a bit of an argument, and then she referred the man in the tan suit and Mutallab down a hallway to talk to the security manager, and then, of course, he winds up on her plane detonating a defective bomb, but we didn't know it at the time, a few hours later. So, that's what most people want to hear from me as to my pre-boarding account. It shows that not everything was on the up and up before boarding, and now we have, since then, we have more FBI plots where they've admitted giving the Portland Christmas tree bomber and the Wrigley Field bomber, just two off the top of my head, intentionally defective bombs. And now we have standby attorney Chambers indicating that, in fact, this was a defective bomb. With all the other evidence, I could go on and on and on about all the other evidence, but I think if you just take those three pieces of evidence right there and add 2 + 2 + 2, you have the U.S. government letting Mutallab on the plane with an intentionally defective bomb.
And then we have the FBI visiting your office a month or so before the State Department admitted that what you'd said was basically true. Unnamed U.S. agency, to be technical, I guess, helped him get the visa and then helped him get on without the passport, to be technical. And you witnessed this, and then the media tried to say, and the government, oh, no, Haskell and his wife, they didn't see this. Then once it lands, they pull you off, claim they find other bombs, clearly other men that were somehow attached to the underwear bomber. All that gets covered up. You're told you didn't see that. Then other witnesses come out on CNN and confirm what you saw. But all that gets swept under the rug, and this happens, and within minutes, Chertoff, who didn't tell the public he was making money from it, is on TV saying, don't worry, we'll put scanners in now that they'd already ordered a year before, claiming they went in because of this when they'd already ordered them. And this full TSA, hands down the pants, giant international story. This is how they're selling us this. And they go out and find mentally ill, low-grade morons. You and others described him as being kind of disheveled. Some saying he almost looked drugged. I've seen videos of him. He looks like he's probably at a 75 IQ, probably retarded. And the whole thing is just a giant setup, and now he's going to represent himself. And you're a lawyer. I mean, this whole thing looks extremely shady. Is there any way for you to force your way into the trial as a witness? But I guess Mutallab would have to call you or the prosecution and say, hey, let's get into real questions. Let's talk about who was behind him. Let's talk about the government getting him on the plane.
And there's not a chance that the prosecution is going to call me as a witness. Now, I have been in discussions with standby attorney Chambers, and if he has anything to say with it, I'll be one of the main witnesses for the defense. But, as you stated, Mutallab is currently representing himself, so who knows how the trial will play out. It's a total crapshoot if someone's representing themselves at a trial.
Well, I've interviewed multiple prisoners and lawyers who sued and got the documents and got sworn affidavits from Larry Nichols that McVeigh was told, your family's going to be taken out. You are special forces. We had you do this. You'll be taken care of if you just go along with it. And I wonder if they're telling the underwear bomber the same thing now, because, I mean, the fact that he doesn't even really speak good English, does he? And now magically he's going to represent himself. This is just incredible. I mean, the only way they can keep this from coming out in the trial is to keep you and others from speaking.
Yeah, you're probably right. He did have an interpreter at the hearing I was at last week. His English seemed to be fairly good, but he did talk to his interpreter on 2 or 3 occasions, so his English isn't perfect.
Is he, Kurt, is he saying anything? Thank God you've been there. Hopefully you can come back on as this unfolds. I mean, you're the expert on this. I mean, take us where we need to go. I'm just asking questions that seem rational here. But I mean, if I was the underwear bomber and I'd been led on the plane by people and protected, he should be saying, I was set up. Yes, I did it, but the government helped me. I mean, is he saying anything like that?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, most of the hearing I was at, about 25 minutes of it, and the hearing went on maybe 40 minutes, was Mutallab and Judge Edmonds basically arguing back and forth whether he was going to represent himself or not. Judge Edmonds insisting that he should have an attorney, and Mutallab saying, no, I'm representing myself. And this just went on back and forth for about 25 minutes. It was the strangest thing. It seemed like everybody watching this in the courtroom just wanted to stand up and say, let Chambers be your attorney instead of your standby. Everyone was on the edge of their seat waiting for Mutallab to say that, and he never did. And eventually Judge Edmonds gave up on this argument. But your point is basically a point that I was thinking of, too. There's only really 3 explanations why he's representing himself. He's being threatened with something, he's being promised something, or he has such a distrust for the United States system itself due to being duped in this plot that he does not trust an attorney being appointed from the court. So I don't know which of the 3, but I don't see that there can be any other possibilities other than one of the 3, and I don't know which it is.
Well, in the last year, as you mentioned, there have been 8 cases that we've chronicled here that I know of where they go out and find people who are described as morons, normally out of the prisons, are recruited directly by the government, contacted by the government out of whole cloth, and directed to carry out jihad with dud bombs. Clearly here we know that's what happened. The evidence, as you said, is incontrovertible. And, boy, this is really going to hurt the insider's agenda for the police state if it's able to come out what really happened.
I agree. The question is it going to come out? I really have a hard time believing that it's going to come out. Until the hearing last week, I was adamant that there would be a plea deal in this case and no trial. And now I'm convinced there will not be a plea deal and that this will go to a trial based on what I saw at the last hearing. So my question then is, how does this not come out? And probably the most logical answer is that Mutallab represents himself and does such a bad bad job of putting on his case that the real evidence doesn't come out. Probably the most likely scenario. I'm sure there would be some others, but that's probably the most likely scenario what's going to happen.
I know that in some types of court cases you can have an amicus brief or someone from the outside who claims they have some type of standing. You're one of the survivors, the victims of this government moron plot, patsy plot. I mean, is there some legal maneuver for you to insert yourself in there?
I don't think there is, Alex. Nothing that I know of offhand. If there are any legal geniuses listening to this that thinks maybe there is, let me know. Contact me. I don't think there is. I don't think Judge Edmonds would let me be anywhere near Mutallab as far as representing him. And interestingly, on that point, there was a discussion during the hearing, too, that the standby attorney Chambers is having a hard time getting a hold of Mutallab in the prison where he's at, Milan Prison, indicating on the record that his voicemails are not being given to Mutallab, his faxes are being thrown away, and he's not getting cooperation in setting up appointments with Mutallab from Milan Prison, to the extent that Judge Edmonds said she would make a call to the prison to discuss it with them. And standby attorney Chambers even saying that he believes Milan Prison got a call from someone higher up, I think those are his exact words, which led to this lack of cooperation. If you give me one other second, there's one other thing about the hearing I want to talk about. There was another discussion, quite lengthy, whether standby attorney Chambers would be given the evidence that Mutallab's originally hired and fired attorneys have provided by the prosecution, because he's only a standby attorney. And the government's position was that he should not be given this evidence because it could be subpoenaed or made available to third parties in a possible civil suit against the government, which I thought was kind of interesting that they're concerned about that.
Well, that's bombshell. They're trying to cover up. They don't want anybody to ever hear or who has a brain to be able to talk to Mutallab. Right.
The point being that Chambers is not his actual attorney, so therefore there's no attorney-client privilege. So everything that Mutallab tells Chambers, other parties such as myself in a possible civil suit could obtain. I thought that was pretty interesting. There was about 10 minutes of the hearing spent on that. So
that's an admission that they're concerned about evidence that shows that the government is civilly liable.
Well, that's one way you can interpret it, definitely. They did seem to be concerned about that.
We're going to break in a moment, but continue fleshing that point out. I mean, because you're a lawyer, you understand this better than some.
Sure. Sure. Do I have time right now before the break?
Yes, you do.
Okay. With attorney-client privilege, anything your client tells you cannot be repeated to another person unless the client gives the okay. Chambers is only a standby attorney, therefore he does not have the attorney-client privilege with Mutallab at this point. So all the evidence that the prosecution had to turn over to the defense initially, when Mutallab had a legitimate attorney, the prosecution is now arguing it shouldn't be given to Chambers because that could be turned over to other parties because it's not subject to the attorney-client privilege, such as myself. If I were to sue the United States government, I could obtain every conversation and every document Mutallab would have given to Chambers. And the United States government's attorneys at the hearing last week seem to be pretty concerned about this. Do you think that clears it up, Alex? I don't know if I can be more clear than that.
No, that is stunning information. So they're clearly trying to hide something. I want to come back from break and strategize with you, Kurt, about where we go from here. Obviously, this is very dangerous for you and your wife, very dangerous for the standby attorney, because we know this guy was their patsy and this was a setup, and that's been confirmed. And you're absolutely right. Kurt Haskell blows whistle, an undercover bomber. Headline, given bomb by U.S. government to boost TSA budget, implement body scanners. We'll be right back.
Is it possible to get out of debt without payment plans or attorneys? 18 years ago, we developed a program that has made thousands debt-free in just 90 days. It's called Zero Debt in 90 Days, and it works for all credit card debt, medical bills, even collection lawsuits.
When I first joined, I was being sued.